Good evening and welcome to this evening's event. To begin our program, please welcome the Director of External Affairs of the Boston Debate League, Jackney Joseph.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for tonight's Race, Equity, and Policy Series conversation on the aftermath of mass incarceration. The Boston Debate League's mission is to integrate argumentation and competitive debate into Boston, Chelsea, and Somerville public schools to develop critical thinkers ready for college, career, and engagement in the world around them. This Race Equity Policy Series is a year-long series of dialogues and learning opportunities for students and the broader community. And through a series of 5 virtual community conversations and conference, we've explored multiple facets of criminal justice, from policing to sentencing, and now talking about the aftermath of mass incarceration. And through this series, we've connected with a broader BDL and Suffolk and Boston communities, and we've connected them to policy leaders, change makers, people impacted by and involved in criminal justice system, and those who advocate for a diverse set of policies and practices. And we are really just truly excited to be partnering with Suffolk University in this work. Suffolk University is a longtime partner of the BDL, from offering up space for debate tournaments to hosting BDL students in a dual enrollment course, and now collaborating with us on this Race, Equity, and Policy series. So before we move into our conversation, I do want to note a few things for our audience. We will have Spanish translation, Spanish language translation available for tonight's program. And if you go to the bottom of your screen, you will see an interpretation icon, and you can click on that and select Spanish. We are asking everyone to put your questions into the Q&A, and we will have those questions lined up for our speakers later this evening. I know that we will be joined tonight by some BDL students and Suffolk Law students, so please identify your affiliation in the chats, and we encourage everyone to let us know where you're tuning in from tonight, where in the city, the state, or even the country. We invite you to let us know where you are joining us in this conversation. And the last piece, just ask that you keep your mic on mute as we start the conversation. So tonight, I am truly honored to be joined by Trucy Alab. He is the Director of Reentry at the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. Cassandra Bensahih, MASC Coordinator and Senior Organizer at the Unitarian Universalist organization. I'm sorry, I think I may have lost the title for that, Cassandra, and so you can provide that introduction as well. And lastly, Kevin Sibley, our Executive Director of the Office of Returning Citizens for the City of Boston. Now, our 2 prior discussions in the Race, Equity, and Policy series has covered communities and policing and prosecution. And in today's forum, we're discussing a more recently emerging focus of criminal justice reform. What does that reform look like for our returning citizens, and how can we as a community support them as they re-enter the community? And again, I'm joined by our esteemed panelists, and I would love to start in opening this question up for Trucy and Cassandra. You're both returning citizens, and you have an intimate understanding of what it's like to adjust and reacclimate after incarceration. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience as a returning citizen and what you're doing now and how your experience has informed that work? And either of you can go.
Trucy, you can go first.
Okay, I was gonna be the gentleman and say ladies first. What I would say is it's been such a long journey, and so the biggest thing for me transitioning almost June would actually be 23 years. And the actual day of release was Juneteenth, June 19th, 1998, which is significant in and of itself. But I just think the biggest thing was about being perseverant. There was no reentry programs. There was no Office of Reentry of Returning Citizens. There wasn't the Boston Reentry Initiative, which I was a mentor with years ago. And I had to have the drive to succeed. And I got that from my faith-based foundation. When I accepted Islam, I grew up Catholic, I adopted Islam, and I visited Israel. So I usually say, can we all just get along? But I can tell you that the spiritual checkup from the neck up for me was everything. That's what gave me the strength, the fortitude to stalk people for opportunity. And I used to pen letters that said, it gets greater later at the end. And what you pay attention to grows. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. I know it's cliche, that might even sound corny to some, but it's real. And that's exactly what happened. You know, one opportunity led to another, and led to another. So I think the biggest thing is just being perseverant, and having a foundation, having a home to go to. You know, housing and employment, as we'll delve into a little bit deeper later, are some of the biggest challenges. But I had a home base, and then I also had a spiritual foundation, and that's what's carried me for over 2 decades, and working in this work since 2000. So. I'll stop.
Thank you. Thank you, Tusi. It's a great story and a great success.
Thank you.
So mine's is a little bit different, you know, a faith-based base saved me while I was inside the prison. You know, it freed my mind, freed my spirit, and I loved going to church inside the prison. But I didn't get much treatment around my trauma and the things that I carried. I think many of the things that brought me there, and I did a very short time. So for me, it was more about the prison afterlife and what happened when I came home. You know, I was the caretaker for my daughters. And when I went in, they went to the state because I had nobody to keep them. So when I came out, I did 6 months of a 1-year sentence, pleaded guilty to something I didn't do, got out on parole, and was left to my own devices. But like Trucy said, there was no reentry services given to me. And there was the offer of going to the sheriff's office. But when I came home, I thought I would seek, you know, recovery for my substance disorder. And I went into a program and just started doing NA and AA on a regular basis. I was told do 90 days in 90 days. And in the middle of that, the sheriff's program kicked in, disrupted that, and I had to report there. Still, my daughters are in the care of the state. Me, I'm living with someone I shouldn't be living with because, of course, I was homeless after everything that happened. And I was going to this program. Then I turn around and go to the sheriff's program. And because I had gotten used to the meetings I was going to, I refused to be going out at night. So the sheriff's program was not really serious about the care. And the people there were not serious about getting better. So it trickled over to me. And what came to my mind was I could do some of the things I did before. I could get away with that because so-and-so's getting away with it. But it didn't work that way for me. You know, I got caught it was like a 90-day program, and I got caught on like the 89th day. I'll never forget that, right? And they were like, what happened, Cassandra? You're doing so well. I said, I just dropped my head. I don't know. I said, but I'm getting in a program. And I did. They allowed me to go into a program and not take me back to jail. And so in the program, I discovered about community organizing from some people that came inside. And I had nothing else to do. So I remembered how much I loved Angela Davis and the work they did, the Black Panthers. I often wear a black tam. I don't believe in all the ideals, but I do believe in the work they did with the people, you know. I guess when President Obama became president and we signed so many people up to vote and tell their stories, it was beautiful. I felt like I had a part of that. So I stayed with this organization. I became a leader. I learned how to do one-to-ones. I learned how to become an organizer, an executive director. All kinds of things just kept happening. I got my daughters back. I got the job, and I finally learned to fight with my voice for what I needed. And that included housing, DCF to let my children go. You know, there was a lot of history. But I felt like I had to stop being in programs or jail environments with people telling me what to do because I was older. And I knew that if I could give up this one thing, like they all said, to have everything, then I could begin to live my life again. But I also had the purpose of doing something for the people, of being in service for the people, to give back. And it felt good. It felt empowering, you know. And my leadership skills came out, and all I do is be myself, show the love, and talk to people and try to make good things happen. That's my story.
Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you, Trucy. And I'd like to open up this question to Kevin. Kevin, you know, this is the first time we've had an office for returning citizens in the city of Boston. And can you talk a bit about why now? And can you discuss the resources and the supports that the city provides for them?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you, Jackie, for this opportunity. You, the Boston Debate League, Suffolk University, to have this dialogue. And on behalf of the mayor of the city of Boston, thank you again for having us here. Why now for the ORC, the Mayor's Office of Returning Citizens? My esteemed panelists and partners, Trucy and Cassandra, basically said it all. The purpose for the ORC was to create a municipal office that could address the needs of individuals who have been impacted by incarceration. Our mission is to assist returning citizens to reclaim their dignity and purpose and rebuild their lives through positive choices, incentives, and opportunities. The ORC is the entry point for the city of Boston in Suffolk County, and we provide assistance in transitional housing, employment, healthcare, and education. We have intentional partnerships with peer mentorships, case management. Most importantly, I believe we identify gaps in services that exist in Boston and outside of Boston. And we connect clients with a vast network of amazing service providers here in Boston. When the mayor decided to create the Office of Returning Citizens in 2017, he first created the Office of Public Safety to begin to look at some of the safety items that were hampering our city. In addition, he created the Mayor's Office of Recovery Services to be a supplement to the Mayor's Office of Returning Citizens, because we realized that 75 to 79% of the population who are incarcerated because they suffer from some type of mental illness and or substance abuse situation. So we wanted to not just throw people aside and cast them away. We wanted to be very intentional and address the needs of our constituency. We realized that reentry is a complex, lifelong approach, and we take it on a step-by-step basis. And we realized that there are many organizations, unfortunately, that may not have reentry or incarceration as a part of their service delivery plan. They may service the whole and service reentry as a supplement of what they do. But ORC, we service individuals directly, and we service individuals with the intent and understanding that there are intentional impediments that come in the way when you're talking about reentry. From small items like having to report to your parole or probation officer, to having court dates and how that impacts directly with employment. So when we begin to look at how we help this very specific underserved population, that is why the ORC was created. And we continue to look at the many, many areas of which there is discrimination, policy discrimination, where there is miscommunication. We hold organizations and offices accountable for doing the work that they do. And we try to move forward to make sure that this moves beyond identifying a person as a returning citizen. We want to identify all individuals as individuals who have amazing potential and should be given opportunity regardless of their past.
Thank you, Kevin. You started to mention some barriers, and I think there are some obvious barriers that people don't think about when it comes to returning citizens, reacclimating, and pursuing jobs, for example. At our January conference, D.A. Rollins mentioned inmates in another state who worked as firefighters, and I believe it was probably California. They worked as firefighters while incarcerated, but weren't eligible to work as firefighters once released. Can you talk about, and this is for everyone, can you talk about the stigma associated with incarceration and the impact on returning citizens in pursuing jobs?
I want to, while I'm here, I want to actually introduce a document that was released January 21st, and it was released by the Justice Center, the Council of State Governments, and it was the report on barriers to work. And what our general public does not necessarily know is that there are over 48,000 collateral consequences that come with being incarcerated. And many of those collateral consequences come with the impact on employment opportunities in several different categories: occupational and professional licensing, business licensing, hiring and retention. All of these areas are impactful. And for those of our audience who are looking for a way to be impactful in helping not just returning citizens, but citizens in general, right? We are citizens as we return from incarceration. We have an impact. We've been impacted by incarceration, rather. We need to begin to look at some of the policies that were created specifically to keep out folks who have been impacted by incarceration. So I just wanted to throw that. We can talk about that further if you like.
I appreciate that, Kevin. That is a large number, the 48,000 collateral consequences for incarceration. That would have an impact, yeah, on whether or not you can find employment if there are barriers in your way. Did you want to say something, Tracy?
Just in terms of barriers, I think today, because of the great work that Kevin's doing, Cassandra, and there are many in the city of Boston that are giants in terms of helping returning citizens reacclimate. So there's a lot of help. There are some Corey-friendly employers, if you will. There's the Rokas of the world. There's the UTEX of the world. There's the street worker program. So today, if you're motivated and you have some drive and initiative, you can really overcome these barriers a lot easier than when I was transitioning over 2 decades ago. But I would say that one of the biggest barriers is really just self-esteem and the confidence to know that you can do it, right? So the biggest impediment, I would say, to reentry, because it starts in the psychic, right? If you believe you can do it, you will. If you believe you can't, you won't, right? And so that's a real thing. Your psychic and your faith and your ability happen. It's a big part of it. Now, when you go away, there are numbers that say statistically that the education level is around the 4th or 5th grade. So education is a part of it, or the lack thereof is a part of it too. But when you're behind the wall and you take care of your academics and you get involved in the right programming, and you're praying, there's nothing that you really can't overcome when you get out. But it's a lot, because there's post-traumatic stress. There's the paranoia of knowing that you was once a part of the system. I remember, all the time, there were guys, and I did the same thing. You would say, you just got out, you just got out, you just got out. And so for me, because it's so long ago, and I've kind of, I can't say I've made it, but I've attained a great level, a measure of success. So it can be done, but it really comes down to the support base that you have around you. And I would say this on that same point, one of the other biggest barriers is, and we don't talk about this enough, is the family and friends of the returning citizens. So a lot of times a guy comes home and things may be estranged with his child's mom, and she's been holding the fort down, taking care of his child or his children. And the pressure for him to produce is so intense oftentimes that it forces guys to go back to what they used to do, which is how they ended up in custody in the first place. So for anyone in the audience that has a family and friends that you're supporting, you need to give that individual the same amount of time that you did behind the wall. You need to give him that same amount of time to get back on his feet. Mm-hmm. So pressing him for rent, pressing him for mortgage, pressing him for groceries is only going to force him to do something that he does not want to do. So I would add that to the barrier category, and we need to figure out a way as a city and as a Commonwealth to lighten the burden of families that are supporting the returning citizen population.
Thank you. And Cassandra, before I'll just,
okay, go ahead.
As you comment, I'd love for you also, you did mention sort of getting your children back, and I'd love for you to comment on some of the specific barriers to women as well.
Thank you. I see the same things that True C is saying, and it's true. But there has to be some resources in that community and a connection, not outdated resource books. There have to be some things changed. And there are some members in our community working on that. In particularly when women re-enter with no money, especially mothers, like 79% of women in prison are mothers, either pregnant or have children. So there was one program, and I got to go to that program when I came out, and came back and had a urine test, and one of the meds that I was taking for diabetes that I had developed inside gave a false positive. And I was only on the bus to this program. I think it was called AIM, Aid to Incarcerated Mothers. That was a discouragement. That got me put out of a program, and I went straight to a doctor's office, had my blood drawn, and I was okay, so they brought me back. But can you just imagine that what you have to fight more lies which work the system against people that are too poor or that don't have the education to do what they need to do to save themselves. True C's right. You have to be on it. You have to want it, I got put out of that program. I could have been of the mindset that, okay, I'm out. But I went to another one because I didn't want to go back to jail. And I continued going. Another problem that a mother has is the loss of her children. It's traumatizing for the children. It's traumatizing if they visit you inside. And when they see you, you don't even remember each other as well, or it's like a new interaction, okay? Our kids are likely to drop out of school or become delinquent or come up with problems because they've been traumatized. There's nothing good about foster homes. Well, my daughter's found some things, but I had one daughter that went to 17 different foster homes because she couldn't bond. So I carry that, she carries that. Now we can't take care of our kids without housing. The barriers, the collateral damage of the criminal record, you have to go around and around and around. And how much money have you made? Or what? There's some programs you need to know about that will help with first and last, but will they help you if you've been in jail? I found a program that was working with formerly incarcerated mothers and mothers in recovery. And they took me at North Village in Webster, Mass. And they were pretty nice places. My kids went to school. I kept working as an organizer and I couldn't watch them all the time. So the trauma, I'm still dealing with trauma from two of them because they were basically on their own, but they were fighters because I had instilled that in them. And we just went up and down on the roller coaster trying to get them to where we had to get to. But I continued to work because I had put my passion there. So right then and there, the new law that we helped pass, the primary caretakers bill, says that if a parent has a substance disorder and she's the caretaker of her children, men or women, the judge can use that tool to send the family unit to recovery. They can get parenting skills. They can heal with their children. They can grow together. They don't have to be kicked to the side, and they don't get the collateral damage of the criminal record. You know, I had to carry that 6-month sentence, a 10-year felony record, to be able to seal that. I wanted to work in a hospital, but I'm helping people here. I carry that. But had it not been for building relationships and being able to advocate for myself and others and meeting some beautiful leaders, True C's one of them. I've met Kevin at his place and worked with him. There's so many people that I can't name, but they did believe in me until finally I believed in myself. It's my form of organizing, but I take it from all different ways and agencies and people and heroes in my life. And I fight passionately because we have to be aware of what's going on. And we have to be bold enough to say, no, it's 2021. Let's get this done. Let's just make some real bold changes and see what it leaves, how much better it'll leave this generation. You know?
And
Absolutely.
I did want to circle back for folks, Kevin, you know, you mentioned this collateral consequences, and I just want to make sure that folks understand. Can you talk a little bit about what those are? What does that look like?
I definitely will, and I'll do that in answering the question that one of our viewers, Linda Samuels, asked. There was a mention that there's no barriers to starting someone's own business in Massachusetts, and I'm here to let you know that ALMGL Chapter 93 of the Massachusetts law has consequences in every area. Business licensure and participation, registration, publication, and notification. And since this office has been established, I've had conversations with 4 individuals who wanted to start their own business or push cart selling hot dogs, selling merchandise off a cart, and they couldn't get a peddler's license because they were denied because of their Corey convictions and background.
Kevin,
So-
can I just say on that point, that was really hard, but I've heard that I think GBLO, Greater Boston Legal Services, is talking about the new bills that they're pushing so that these licensures are available to people now. There's a waiver they can have lifted and prove their self and get this license now. It's for cosmetology, barbering, vendors, that they can be able to start their own business. One law we need to really lift is when somebody comes home with a record that they can't stay with a relative in their house with that record. We need to work on the Boston Housing Authority to understand that if you can't sleep on your mother's couch, if you can't live at your daughter's house until you get on your feet, I mean, and there's ways, of course, you can see that it's a protection, but if you've earned that right and you don't do anything wrong but get on your feet, it should be allowed. And we don't want to make our families' life harder, but people have to have housing. They have to have opportunities for jobs offered. Even if you come home with lifetime parole, I learned when we were in a meeting with True C, you come home on a lifetime parole, you pay parole fees for a lifetime.
For a lifetime.
And meet with these people. And none of that is put to your betterment, like maybe save some money for you to get a car or a house or something. How, for life, you gotta pay? So justice follows you, and are you ever really true? I mean, are you ever really free? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's something that we have to try to get around. If the criminal legal system is not for justice, the work of justice, it seems to be the work of managing the problems in our communities. And our communities want to help with that, but we need the resources. And they're not doing a good job of managing everybody either. Over 2,000 people in there have been exonerated. Half of them are Black. And they get the same treatment when they were there. So we have a big failure of a system. And then we have nothing to help for all the service they gave DOC and HOC when they went in. And if you make it out in one piece, there needs to be something to hold you together just for a little while till you can get on your feet. Because you build some strength in there.
That's
But
right.
where's the road to just being to life again?
You mentioned the sort of making sure that returning citizens have these resources. And, you know, I think there's some, right, who would say, well, I don't have anyone helping me get a job or stay out of trouble. Can you talk about how these programs, you know, how assisting returning citizens benefits our Commonwealth?
Well, that's public safety 101.
Right. And I think, you know, I think it also speaks to the fact that if you make someone better, and then there's mentors in the community that they can connect with, they can listen, there's some of the best leaders in the world. These are some good people that I work with today. And everybody in my life, when you talk about surrounding yourself with the right people, everyone in my life today is people that I look up to. And they are leaders, and they've been formerly incarcerated. Their stories that are unbelievable, and you look at them and you can't help but love them. And they're making a difference today because they're trying to change what happened to them. So it stops happening to others. And I think as movement makers, as leaders in our community, we owe it to them to keep this work going, you know, to keep it going until we can say, yeah, people are being treated like human beings, okay? And this is over there, brother, and that's over there. And you need to be a visionary leader who leads with lessons from the past and committed to transcending this whole mess. I think back in the day when they didn't have babysitters, family members chipped in. Today, if we don't know the answer, we have to have brothers out there to hold the brothers and sisters out there to say, sister, this is going on and we need you to get involved. You know, I was part of a team where we raised $4,000 on a WhatsApp to buy somebody a car to get a ride so that they wouldn't hurt somebody who had messed up a car. It's what different looks like. It's what community looks like. You know.
I wanna attach with my sister Cassandra is saying today. There are some amazing leaders in our community, in our Boston community, that we have to go to who are head leaders of organizations. People like Conan Harris, who was one of the architects on putting the Office of Returning Citizens together with the mayor, and then Abigail Forrester, William Morales, Lino Sanchez, Trucy Allah. You know, all of these are amazing leaders in our community who've been given this opportunity to be a spokesperson for the backroom conversations that may come up. Now we are involved in these conversations, and we can firmly state some of the inequities that exist. I do want to say equity is what you see, and inclusion is what you do. So we have this opportunity now to have these voices and to educate the public, but we need more. We need more assistance. We are receiving assistance from individuals from our legal, from our elected officials, champions like Liz Morales and Brandy, who are putting forth documentations as a start, the START Act. We support all of these things. We need to begin to impact legislation that is happening that will help to level the playing field. And we have, I would say that we have more than we did 10, 15 years ago. Let's continue to build on that as a community. Public safety is not just one person's responsibility. It's not one office's responsibility. It's a responsibility of our community to be involved and not just close a blind eye and move forward. Trucy said it best at the beginning, as a person thinketh, and that is truly how we should interact with each other, and how we should plan forward for our communities.
Right.
I'd like to
I want to add a little bit to that.
Sandra, I just want to get us to some more questions, because we have some more questions from the audience members as well. But one of the questions that students have been debating this year is whether or not the federal government should ban disenfranchisement on the basis of criminal conviction. What do you think we as a society stand to gain by ensuring that incarcerating individuals and returning citizens maintain the right to vote? And what do you see as some of the challenges of implementing such a policy?
I know one thing. I was always glad when I learned and I discovered that we did not disenfranchise in Massachusetts. I see the madness that happens in Florida, and that they, you know, even with that law when it was in place, because I know the people that helped to overturn it, they still cheated, okay? So what we need, right? We all need to know that when you return home, and that needs to be told to so many people, that you can vote. Some of the, and I've done the voter registration. So some of the challenges I used to run into was people telling me, nah, I can't vote, I have a record. And we fixed that, we talk about that. And then they'd say, I don't know if I want to sign up because they're gonna call me for jury duty. And I ain't got time to be going to court and taking off from work and stuff. And so I used to explain, you know, you're supposed to be judged by a jury of your peers. If you don't sit on that jury for me, and I'm up there and nobody understands that I was an abused mom, you know, poor mom, whatever, you might send me right down the river because you don't understand. We don't understand if we're not the same people. And about legislation, we cannot leave it up to the legislators. They need the experts, the people that have sat in those cells, that have come from home from those cells, the people that are out there doing it. We need to have a voice in the new laws that are being built, the reforms that are looking at, the prisons that are not being built. And we need to talk to the leaders in the community for the answers that are working and how we can all get to the answers of doing better. You know, but voting is very important and people need to know to do it. I hope that answered that.
It's, I don't know if anyone wanted to comment on that last question as well.
Now, I was going to go backwards to the one about why should we help returning citizens, and compared to someone who, you know, might be in, because you said some around the why should we help someone who needs it versus me over here, I'm struggling and no one's helping me. And what I would say to that, which is vital, is that we're only as strong as our weakest link, right? And so hurt people. So we can help repair that man or that woman, right? You're improving the quality of your neighborhood, your city, and ultimately your Commonwealth. So it's really just about giving back. One thing about me is that one of the reasons why I can go probably to any area gang involved, or what law enforcement will call a hotspot, without an escort, is because when I was working inside South Bay, working with these young, I've never treated them less than my little brother, or in some cases, my older brother. I never got brand new, I've arrived, talked down to them, demeaning, disrespectful. No, I was always trying to lead by example. They knew my story, so just me showing up was inspiration and motivation for them to try to do better. You know, you started out, you know, talking about our experience, but for me, it was so long ago, I don't really even embrace that. Because the reality of it is I was able to get my record sealed, and then I was one of four to get a governor's pardon from Deval Patrick, His Excellency, I should say, Deval Patrick. So I can tell you I don't have a history, right? But the reality of it is the stigma and the underlining and the innuendos and all of the red tape that I've had to climb through is still present. And you have to be strong in order to cut through that that passive aggressive, or what the community would call sneak dissing. Like, you just got to block it out, you know, and the 4 agreements helped me get through that. But I got a story to tell. That's for sure.
Well, I wanted to circle back.
Say how true how happy I was when that happened, and I was there. I remember when Deval expunged your record, and it was so amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Which was a process in and of itself. But let me just say this real quick, Jackney. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best. And I try to live that every day.
And I appreciate those comments, Trucy. Something else that, I jotted down, in our conversation, you mentioned your sentence is your punishment. It shouldn't be the treatment. And I think that speaks very much to, how can community members assist returning citizens, is even as you just spoke, like not talking down to people, right? People have had an experience, treating them truly as, right, your neighbor, as part of your community. So I appreciate those comments. We are getting to the time where we'll jump into some audience questions. So I did want to ask one last question about, we're at a point in history in this country where, a consciousness level has been raised. And when it comes to injustice, and young people in particular are engaged in thinking about these issues of justice, reform, and equity. And, many have taken action, and some are looking for ways to engage more deeply. my question is, what can they do? And what would be your call to action for the community?
Well,
Go ahead,
simply
Kev.
put, one of the major pieces, and there's enough work for everyone involved, is to review the collateral consequences that come with incarceration, and take an area and be impactful with local, state, and federal authorities to have some of these restrictions removed. And I think that is where we can begin the process to remove the social restrictions. Also, just understanding that persons who have been impacted by incarceration are citizens. There's not a special tag that folks are stamped with. Just understanding they had an experience, and that experience is personal to them. And if they want to share that experience, that's on them to share that experience, but no one should be made to feel that they have to share an experience, especially one as traumatic as being incarcerated. So just understand that before, because I've been in circles and people ask that question, well, you're incarcerated and this and that. And so sometimes my feedback, and even though I haven't been impacted personally by incarcerated, but every one of my family members have, and that's why I do this work. I've often asked them, well, what's your social security number? Or what's your credit score? Because it's just as private and personal as those items. So that's my comment. What do you got to say, True?
Yeah, no, man, I agree. You said it. You said a lot. I would just say that on that same note, having a history, if you will, I never buy into that. Doesn't like define who I am. It describes, or it's talking about an experience that we went through, and so it's a mistake. It's a series of mistakes, but you can't accept that as your reality. And one thing that we need to start doing, collectively as a city and a Commonwealth, is use language that does not demonize a sister or a brother who's transitioning. And what do I mean? If I'm on a panel nationally or even locally, sometimes I would say that I was a person who was ill affected by the criminal justice system, or adversely affected by the criminal justice system. Sounds so much more sexier, right? Than ex-con, ex-anything. I'm none of that. I don't subscribe to that. And if you want to get technical, Jesus, Moses, a lot of the prophets were incarcerated. And we love the name of Jesus. So let's keep it in context. But my point for raising it is that the way we describe a thing determines how you feel and how you embrace it. And so we should be more cognizant of the language we use when we're describing someone who's had that experience, right? Especially to the professional audience. If you're among yourselves and your family and you're having a conversation, there's some things that you could say at the kitchen table that you can't say in a public setting, So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Trucy. I totally agree with that. I always say people inside, I say I'm a member of the post-incarcerated community, but there's life and death in your tongue. And that's it. So a man thinketh, he is. So it ends with, so they don't turn you loose all the time, but you have to be in your mind, and you have to stop being told that you are a criminal or an ex-con, because now you're something different. You're none of those things. You are a man, just like Chusi said, under some circumstances, you made a mistake. And there has to be a time when you forget about that and let a person move on with their life. You have to give those second chances,
And on that same note, milk milk has an expiration date, right? It goes bad, right? You got to pour that milk out after a certain period of time. So after you've demonstrated like brilliantly being a reform change agent, when does that tag expire? You see? So, and with the internet, it don't happen. It really never happens because you could just Google everything. You can do Wikipedia. You can't really get away from things, even though we may have, transitioned our lives in a positive direction. But I think the same way, there was we try to abolish using the N-word. We need to abolish the way the stigma attached to transitioning from inside to out.
That can seriously compromise any efforts at reform or change. We have to start thinking of people as people, and we have to work to make this world better. When he said equity, and equity doesn't equal equality, right?
Mm-hmm.
I always talk about there's a baseball game and there's like two kids standing there over the fence trying to see the game. One kid's really tall and the other kid's shorter. And there's a milk crate. The tall kid don't need the milk crate to stand on to see the game because he can see, even if he can't see really good. But the smaller kid, the one with the less height, he needs the milk crate in order to even look at the game, to get a glimpse. The communities that need the most, that's where we have to invest the most and be there for them. So they can stand up on their feet. And this is an experiment that we've been trying for years and years. It's not, we don't want everything. We just want people to be treated equally. We want the criminal legal system to work fairly and justly and do a professional job and not allow anything negative to go on there. And then we want people to be steered afterwards on their way out, be already ready to go, be looking forward to getting into some type of reentry that's working, some type of mentoring that's working. If you want to stipulate somebody to something, stipulate them to a mentor, a job, education, something positive. You better be doing something positive in a month. Let's threaten people with some real stuff. Not if you ain't got no money or you haven't found a job. Help them find a job. We're taking you back because that's all you're good for. We need a plan like that. The first 72 hours out of there,
Thank you. Thank you all. I want to move to some audience questions as we've had the chat has been going all night, responding to your stories and your comments. And so I want to start with one here about what recommendations do you all have for upcoming criminal justice professionals and leaders, and how can they make the biggest impact and work for change? And this comes from a Suffolk professor.
Who wants to go first?
I would just say find a program to get involved in. Join Massachusetts Against Solitary Confinement. Join Families for Justice and Healing. Join Black and Pink. Get out there in Boston and find out who's doing what and find your niche. And I'm telling you, you'll make a difference. Chip in wherever you can. I'm technically challenged at times. People do they do that challenge. Other times people will, I don't know, put op-eds together, do research on data. And we work as a team, but we pull from everything. Whatever you got to offer, go out there, find a group and get in there and be a part of it.
That's right. Yeah, I would add to that and say that that one thing that you can do is visit the facilities, right, and talk to some of those folks that are going through the system, but also sit with some experts, some of which Kevin mentioned, to talk about and get like sensitivity training, right? Because a lot of times you're deemed, kids are, young adults are being, I should say, are being demonized, but we have to realize that sometimes it's their living conditions force them into bad situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you were dealt a bad hand, if you were born addicted to substance abuse disorder, or you were left to take care of yourself because mom and dad are working 2 jobs, or just out of the picture, the hand that child was dealt was unfair. And so they act out because a lot of times it's just about, I need a hug, I need love, I want to be supported, I want an opportunity, I want to feel valued, I want to buy those new Jordans, but I can't. So I'm acting out because I'm hurting, because people are talking about me and picking on me. And so a lot of the youth that are acting out, there's a reason. Like, people are not just acting out for no reason. There's something going on. There's something missing in that young person's life. And what I think that anyone that's coming up as lawyers, as correctional officers, as police officers, what you have to stop doing is bringing the implicit bias that we learn from our parents at the kitchen table that wasn't always good advice, and judging people by those inaccurate definitions, and then you got to take into account mental health, right, is huge. And so some folks are acting out because there's a mental health disorder that they either have or haven't been diagnosed for. So you need to be able to discern, who's talking to you when you're in front of them. I get it sometimes, guys have bad days. I'm at the Boston State pre-release some days, and a guy, went off one day, and I'm looking at him and I'm saying, you ain't mad at me. Like, something else is going on. So I let it go in one ear and out the other, because it wasn't about me. Something was going on, right? And we need to know that some things we just can't take personal, and we can't accept that our youth are incorrigible. Everybody can turn it around. All souls are redeemable, and you need to approach your lawyer or your profession knowing that there's no soul that's beyond reproach, that can't be turned around, and that'll help you, see things in a better light.
Thank you. We have another question about what incentives are in place for businesses that want to hire those who are re-entering?
There are a couple of incentives that are involved. The federal government offers a bond for each individual who has been impacted by incarceration that chooses to work at a location. I believe that bond is up to $4,000 per person. And there is also a tax incentive of about $2,500 for the municipality that chooses to employ someone who's been impacted by incarceration.
I know on a level it's not a great job. It's like Lowe's, Home Depot. There are different stores, and there should be a list of them, and that's not like living wage money. But we're hoping that there are going to be some programs created that are going to, if people want to take truck driving or they want to do some type of trade work, that they'll be able to get into something like that. We've been working and talking about something. You've got to be able to, you can start out slow. Just like Trucy was saying, I think that, you don't come home with everything, but you maybe come home with a little money in your pocket and a plan for a job, and then you should have opportunities to build that up to a better position and make a man feel like he is, or make a woman feel like she's able to contribute. You know, we have to know that if people don't feel like that, yeah, it might look like a good idea to do what you used to do. And you'll have mentors in your life that'll talk to you. And through connections, you find your way. But we have to have those things. And they do exist right now, especially up in Boston. We've got to have them all over.
There's a number of programs that that currently exist. What we have to make sure that we do is take advantage of the opportunities that are here. With the Pell Grant situation opening up, there is a amazing opportunity for folks to go back and invest in their education right in our own backyard. From the Carbon Square CDC, there is a certification in National Green Infrastructure certification that's available to folks. The classes are starting up soon. We will be working closely with them to get this green certification, and it's open for everyone. And right now, the Carbon Square is footing the bill. It's a $700 bill, but they're doing that for the community itself. We want to make sure that we look at programs. The ORC is involved with a program with tough universities called the Education Bridge Network that provides skills, computer proficiency, coding, job readiness, and mentorship. That is going on at Tufts University. Emerson College Prison Initiative is also another program that's out there. If you want to have a look at what the class did, we spent a semester with them. Please go on to don'toverlook.me. Once again, that's don'toverlook.me as an example of what the city has done in collaboration with the colleges and universities. At ORC, the ORC partnership with Wentworth Institute of Technology, we actually had a couple of students to enter into Wentworth. And as many of you know, Wentworth is a top-notch school, especially in construction. That individual is in his junior year right now, and in construction management. By the time an individual reaches their junior year, they're already guaranteed employment at $80K and up. So there are opportunities that we have out here. We just need to, and we have been moving forward to make those opportunities, and we're always open to discuss this even more from a municipal standpoint.
Absolutely.
Kevin, is that connected like with the parole officers? Do they know about this stuff so that they can connect people there?
They're connected with
together.
We're working with, yes, we work with local, we work with the prison, with Sheriff Tompkins' office. We also work with the DOC, and we work with parole. Of course, we work with Brother True C. So we are connected when people are looking for the information.
All right.
Yeah, and Ben Franklin, we have a partnership with Ben Franklin Institute of Technology. And prior to COVID, you know, the guys that were at the pre-release were able to go to take those classes, those courses there. But anyone who's graduated from the school of reentry and has their high set, they're able to continue that that education, that training upon release. We also have a class going on right now with MIT, with the last cohort that have all graduated and got their high set as well. So there are partnerships. There are a lot of great things and a lot of incentive that is taking place, to add to what Kevin was saying.
Yeah. And I'll be remiss not to mention our partners, Partakers, that runs the College Behind Bars program. And they also have a new program that they are initiating that is including education and workforce development opportunities as well. So there are a number of individuals who are stepping to the table to participate in redefining the narrative that's out there. We just want to make sure that we connect.
And is this information, I know there's a question here about whether or not there is a site at the city or the state where this information is available, or is this through a particular channel?
Well, we don't have a site listed with all of these connections. Currently, I can say that although it's updated annually, the Coming Home Directory does give some type of direction for individuals who are looking to connect with different resources. And it is up to us in the community to make sure that we submit updated information to the Coming Home Directory so that our community is made aware of what opportunities are out there. So our connection that we have here this evening it leads into a lot of different information. We just need to be tapped in.
Thank you. We have another question here from Kevin. One of our attendees has been a teaching and entrepreneurship course at Pondville Correctional, where they work on developing a positive mindset and the tools you need to start a business. Do you offer such educational opportunities at ORC?
We have partners that do. I like to envision the ORC as a air traffic controller that stays in connection with everyone that does everything, not just in the Suffolk County area, but beyond. And so if we don't have it, we will connect you to. Fortunately for Kevin, great name, by the way, we want to, we have the Office of Economic Stability here at the city, and we can connect you directly with the with that department as well as the SBA. They work wonders and they're a great resource.
Another question, when parents go into prison, are the kids, even in foster homes, allowed to visit them?
Yes, they can visit, but I didn't allow, only my oldest visited me. It was just, it's too much to go through. First of all, it feels like a sexual assault every time you have to strip and go through the whole thing. You know, my daughter and I visited, and once they get there, many times she was pregnant. She had to go find something different to wear. She was way away from home because we know these prisons are not in our community. The only shop she could find was a Dominican shop with clothes. My daughter had to cry before they let her in this visit, okay? And then we had like 10 minutes left and I wanted to eat something from the canteen machine. And, you know, sometimes it's worth it just staying connected. Telephone costs, but they don't promote, they don't treat your family nice sometimes when you get there. And that needs to stop. You know, you love that person behind those walls and you come a long ways to see them. It should be a good experience as best as it can get because people pay a lot to do it. So it's very difficult and then it's heartbreaking to say goodbye, but at least you had that moment. You know, I had a daughter that they couldn't even get her to get back in the car. She was like 3 and really strong, right? But they don't want to leave you. It does give you hope that, you know, as long as you're coming home, you'll be together again, you know?
Absolutely.
It's tough.
There's another question here for you, Cassandra. Someone asks, what's the sheriff's program that you referred to, and is it still in operation?
I don't know if it's still in operation. I'm sure it probably is. I don't see too many of these things shutting down, but that was in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. And they had a little sheriff's office right in the middle of the road there. And man, you had to want to do something because you can meet all kinds of shady characters there. And there was all kinds of sneakiness going on. And if you get caught, you're going back to jail, you know? So a lot of people weren't ready. They weren't serious. It was just a stopover, you know, and it depends on how strong you are, what you want to get out of it. I almost made it. But I mean, everybody has their path, you know, to strengthen them and to help them do what they got to do.
That's right.
Amen.
Amen.
I see another question here in the chat. They ask, when a program by a state or a city is being designed to help with re-entry or prison reform, should it already survey those that are affected or who it's meant to service first? Is that already happening? And if so, where's the date?
No, that would be ideal to survey the client, if you will, the customer. But what I will say, Cassandra and I are on an advisory group with the undersecretary for EOPS. And what we've been doing for the last several months is we've been bringing in the subject matter experts, AKA the returning citizens, and asking them about their experiences behind the wall, as well as when they transition back to the community. The goal is twofold. It's one, to change policy at the Department of Correction level, input programming that will work. So those conversations are happening. COVID kind of put a hamper on our schedule of doing a listening tour with the commissioner, with the undersecretary, Cassandra, Abigail Forrester is a part of that group. State Rep Andy Vargas is a part of that group. There's many others. And so that is changing as we speak, but that hasn't happened in the past. And we know it to be an issue, and that's why we're tackling that. Another thing you should know that's encouraging is that we're in the process of developing a program that's a model program called Credible Messengers. And essentially returning citizens will serve in the role of in concert with the probation officer. So they would be able to report to Kevin to get an ID, to go to work. And so it would take some of that, the social work aspect away from the POs, and it would be assigned to this credible messenger. So that's coming soon from the state side. So things are improving, but as you know, it's a big department and the issues are monumental, and Rome wasn't built in a day.
I'd like to add to that. Fortunately, on our end with the ORC, it was created with returning citizens in mind. It was created an architect by someone who is impacted by incarceration, and we continue to include the voices of the formerly incarcerated through our advisory council that we have every second Thursday of the month at 5:30. So we want to make sure that there's inclusion in all of our programs, and any program that comes to do work with returning citizens, we make sure that there's some type of incentive that is added to that ask for that person's time. Because it seems like there are outside organizations that want to study the experiences. And since they want to study the experiences, you're going to have to pay for that education and that advice that is provided to you from folks who've been impacted. So thank you for that question.
Well, it looks like that is the last of our questions before this evening. And I guess my last question for you all is, what do you want the community to know about returning citizens?
I think True C said it best, returning citizens are just people who had a situation, and everyone needs to be treated as a human being with fair, transparent opportunities, and without judgment.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say too, what I would say in terms of a returning citizen, just what Kev said, not to beat a dead horse, but it's someone who paid his or her debt to society. And I said this before, that the sentence is the punishment. It should not be the treatment. I was talking about some of the interactions with staff on the inside of the wall. But that also happens post release. You know, you still run from the cloud of that stigma. And so I think that what we need to understand is those are mistakes that individuals made, and they deserve, like anyone else, 3 strikes and 4 balls, just an even playing field. And if they can if they make it, you know, to God be the glory, you know. And if they don't, would be someone like Kevin, I, or Cassandra will be here to help you when you come back, because, you know, we don't give up. We can't give up. We're a nation, we're a city and a nation in a Commonwealth of second chances, you know, and third chances. So, and fourth. So we need to understand that we just need to embrace, be supportive, and give an opportunity, and it should work out. You know, and what we're saying that though too, oftentimes what gets misunderstood is we're not saying we're giving a blanket pass to everybody who, you know, made a mistake, because there's some that are continuing to make mistakes as we speak. They buy into the program with Kevin and I, and then they relapse and they go back to doing things that are negative, and then we give them tough love. We give them the prison ministry. You know what I'm saying? We're not giving up on them, but we're not, at the same time, I don't want us to take misunderstand that we're not just rubber stamping and saying that everybody is above board. You know, no, you got to meet us halfway. You know, meet us halfway. And there's levels to this. You know, everybody doesn't get into Operation Exit with Kevin. Some people got to go to the temp agency route because they still playing. They ain't done yet. And we know, you know, what that looks like, you know. So there's levels to it, but I think we owe every one of them a honest, we owe them the opportunity, you know, to give them the best we can to help them succeed. We need to make it hard for everybody transitioning out to fail. And that means cutting out the red tape. They shouldn't be forced to go on 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 interviews. No, call up. If you came with the American Express card of Kevin Sibley, then I'm putting you on. It's just like in the streets.
Yeah.
Right?
Right,
If you don't know the plug,
Yeah.
if you don't know the plug, you better come with somebody that the plug knows to get that on consignment.
Yep.
Right?
Kevin, y'all got to be that plug, okay?
It's the same thing
That's
professionally.
right.
You know,
That's right.
and what I say to guys, I'm not trying to knock your hustle. I just need you to change your product. You are your best product, your best commodity. And you got to know how to market yourself, you know. But the work is done. All you need to do is tap into that black card, aka Kevin Sibley, and you're gonna get an opportunity.
I totally agree.
There you go, Trucy. There you
We
go.
have
There
to
you
we
go,
have to
man. There you
welcome
go.
we have to welcome our people with open arms. We have to welcome them to the community with resources, places to go, people to grab them up. You know, there's an old African adage: if a child can't feel the warmth of a village, they say he'll set the village on fire in order to feel the warmth of the fire. We have to welcome people home as returning. You've paid for your crime. What do you need now? If that person came home with, he needs to sign up for mental health, he had meds, wherever he goes, whatever agency he goes to, they have to do a full workup. This is a person, a returning citizen. We have to give them something that will make them feel welcome and whole. And we have to know where those resources are before they leave. So thank you
Thank
guys
you.
so much.
Thank
Thank
you. That was beautiful.
Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. This was a powerful, insightful conversation. Thank you, Cassandra and Trucy, for sharing your stories with us. I've really just appreciated learning more about your challenges and also your successes. And thank you for talking about how we all can be a part, right, as community, how we can all work to support our returning citizens. Trucy Allah, Cassandra Bensahih, and Kevin Sibley, thank you all for your commentary tonight. And for those who are joining us, you know, if you enjoyed this conversation, you can learn more about the BDL. You can volunteer, you can support our work with young people across Boston by visiting bostondebate.org. And we will drop in the chat a survey for our audience. We'd love to hear your feedback on this conversation. Again, if you are interested in volunteering with us, you can visit bostondebate.org/volunteer. We do have a middle school tournament this weekend, as well as our city championship qualifiers, which is taking place this weekend. And you can sign up online for our next forum on criminal justice through the immigrant lens. We will drop that link into the chat as well. And we have, as I mentioned at the beginning of this series of conversations, you can visit us at bostondebate.org/rep series, where you can actually watch the videos of our past forum conversations. And we hope to have this conversation up by the end of this week, if not the beginning of next week, because I think this conversation really, from the comments, I could see the comments just jumping in, and it seems like our audience really appreciated, you know, your expertise, your comments, and everything, you know, all the resources that you shared. And we'll definitely make sure that those resources goes out to the audience. But again, Trucy, Cassandra, and Kevin, thank you so much for your time this evening. And thank you to our audience for participating, for your questions, and for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Stay
Have
free.
a good night, everyone.
All right. Good
Right.
night.